cut out later. Okay. Should be working.
No.
Okay. So, are you just trying to log in too, or are you logged in? Who?
I don't think Windows Online.
Well, I just heard him say something.
Oh, poor Stimian. Poor Stimian.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, he is on. So, are you doing content right now?
Yes.
Well, you might want to mute because we're about to do service.
Okay.
Okay. So, alright, so for the recording, welcome to MMO Church. We are still in soft launch. For anyone that's new to the community, we are a part of VR MMO Church, which was established in VR in 2016. Our vision is to cultivate loving spiritual community across the metaverse. We've planted churches in VR Chat, Altspace, Rust, and now in Final Fantasy XIV. We do things a little differently depending on the platform. Final Fantasy, for example, we do casual story discussions instead of long sermons, and we do some Q&A, and then we usually play together. It may be a little different since we're in Walker right now and everyone's having issues logging in, and everyone's distracted by MSQ right now. So
Rage.
we probably won't be doing play session afterwards, as I'm sure everyone's wanting to get back to MSQ.
I'll be playing.
You'll be playing MSQ, right?
No, I'm going to be running that dungeon over and over, getting that gear set.
Oh, so I might, well, I was going to say...
You ain't going to be changing characters?
Like, maybe not. The queue's too long. I may stay on Coco and just play with Sage or in Reaper. But that's what we usually do afterwards, but Endwalker's throwing things off a lot, and we do have ground rules, though, that we'd be nice, we'd be respectful, we don't interrupt or talk over others, and then no hate speech of any kind, because we all have a part to play in cultivating a loving spiritual community. It's on each of us to do so. So today, I was wanting to talk about Advent, since, Christmas time, all that. Does anyone know the meaning of Advent?
Didn't, the other pastor, I forgot his name, Bismick, said it was like a countdown.
A countdown? Okay,
yeah, I think that's how he described it.
Isn't it the beginning of an adventure? Get it?
Beginning of an adventure?
Yeah. Just write out adventure. Advent. Sure. Sorry. I wouldn't be surprised if there's actually some kind of logic between, or at least the origin of the word. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a connection there, actually.
I don't know. So the Oxford Dictionary term says it's the arrival of a notable person, thing, or event. And for our purposes, as followers of Christ, that notable event and that person would be Jesus arriving as Messiah. And that's what the Christmas story is all about, is that arrival of him and what he brings with it. For followers of Jesus, traditionally, it's the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas, and so that's probably what he was talking about as far as a countdown, maybe? Why are you talking about bunny stew? Asmongold? Bunny boys?
You said we accept everybody. I said bunny stew.
We do accept everyone, and we don't make them into stews, because everyone is a person, regardless of what they look like.
Potatoes are nice and hearty. That they can help you.
You used to be a Lala, and you're talking about potatoes.
Hey, I'm just talking about plain old potatoes,
Oh yeah.
You're the one that brought up Lala.
So it's traditionally it's leading up to the Christmas. Is that you traditionally in church you'll talk about a topic for the 4 weeks up to Christmas, and then each week you would be remembering a key biblical theme that was fulfilled by Jesus, and the messages usually center around peace, hope, joy, and love. That's why I've been putting those videos in the chat every day. It's like, go ahead and watch these. Don't know if you've had a chance, but since we only meet every other week, we're going to be covering all 4 topics today. So, starting with peace, what is your concept of peace?
I guess a lack of fighting.
That's essentially what it is. Oh, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
The opposite of conflict.
I thought Vivi was going to say.
Oh, no, I was sorry, I got slightly distracted because I was researching the word origin of adventure. And it actually is, it is precisely what advent means. It's just, it's just that which happens by chance, fortune, luck, event happening, thing about to happen. And it just, it's just pretty much what advent is. For at least the Latin meaning.
So what is adventure? Is there a correlation? Got me curious now.
Yeah. There's this little breakdown. So, ad is in Latin to venire, which is the base of adventure, is to come. So advenire is to come, and then and that kind of evolved into adventura, which is a thing about to happen.
Okay.
And then Old French is kind of the next evolution of that, which is chance, accident, occurrence, event happening. Adventure, which is Middle English, which is what we kind of use now. That which happens by chance, fortune, luck is kind of what it evolved into, but it's the base is advenire, which is to come, which I believe is the same base as advent.
So the word peace, back to peace, it is a common word in most languages, and it has that common meaning of the absence of war or conflict. But biblical peace is changing it up a little bit. I don't know if y'all had a chance to watch the BibleProject videos. They're in the chat, but essentially it's talking about the biblical concept of peace is the absence of conflict in it, plus something better that's in its place. And the Hebrew word for that is shalom. And it means completeness, wholeness, or nothing missing. And it's a really complex concept, and there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving parts in the relationships and the situations. For example, when you're in a relationship and or a situation that things are broken, shalom would be reconciliation, healing, restoration, bringing it back to wholeness. And so when it's broken, that restoration is needed. So shalom is needed. An Old Testament example of that is when rival kingdoms would make shalom, they would not only stop fighting, but they would also start working together for the betterment of each other, which is something that we don't see nowadays a lot. But since the fall in the garden, the universe has been groaning as it waits eagerly for shalom, because at the fall in the garden, the world broke the way that it was supposed to be broke. The universe broke. And that's mentioned in Romans 8:21 through 23. So, in regards to Advent, Jesus is the bringer of shalom. John 14:27 says, and this is Jesus speaking, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." Paul calls him our peace, and that's that biblical shalom. He's the whole, complete human that we fail to be, giving us his life as a gift, thus making peace or shalom between us as messed up humans and God. And he's coming to restore that wholeness to our broken relationship. And if we accept his gift of shalom and follow him, now we're called to create shalom in the world, in everything that we do. Ephesians 4:3 says, "Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace." And that means that true peace is a choice, and it takes a whole lot of effort. It's not easy. It's a lot of work to restore and bring something to completeness in all aspects of our lives. And we're called to do this in all aspects, where we live, work, play. And that's it's like in our relationships, our nation, our world, everything that we have anything to do with. Don't stay AFK for too long, you'll get booted.
Yeah, I know. As soon as I saw it come up, I was like, no.
No. So how does this concept, this biblical concept of peace, reconcile with your concept of peace up to this point?
I'm not gonna lie, actually I missed part of the explanation because I got a phone call during it. I'll go back and watch the video though. I'll get back to you on it.
Anyone else? For me, it's if you think about modern society and the modern concept of peace, we often make peace, like nations make peace, but it's a very tense peace. Like, just look at Middle East. They're always talking about peace, but there's never peace. There's always conflict, even in the midst of this false peace. So, and they're not working together to help each other. They're constantly fighting. Times of quote-unquote peace. So it's a very, very different concept of peace than what we see. And even me studying this for Advent, it opened my eyes to a different kind of thing. It's like it's a lot of work to do this thing.
Yeah, we learn about political peace, where there's pride mixed in it.
Yeah.
Where one side is always gonna has to get something out of it.
Yeah, what do I get out of this thing? Yeah. And if you don't keep your end of the bargain, boom, we're not in peace anymore. It could escalate at any moment. Yeah. And if you think about it, and it's not even just politics where peace is needed. We need it in everything. Not an easy thing. That's why and it's still hard to wrap your head around because we are a finite human, but that's why Jesus is the bringer of peace. It's because he's the one that's bringing that completeness through his death and resurrection on the cross, and it's restoring that broken relationship.
Yeah, I guess when we get to a place where we have peace in our hearts, like a true peace, it's oftentimes one-sided, where you're just it's kind of tied in with forgiveness too, where like you have to let go, and then you can find your peace afterwards. And
Yeah. So that brings us to the next thing, which is hope.
hi.
So,
Sorry, that's my IRL name.
So, what is your concept of hope?
Hmm. I don't really have a good way to describe it. Like, it's just, just, just the wish that good things will come. You know, the most basic of, uh, the yearning of the expectance
Yeah.
that something good would happen, or not necessarily good, but just something that you want to be done. You know, will happen.
Yeah, like Chris just typed in the Discord. I hope I can log in today.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyone else?
The expectation and faith of better things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's anticipating a future better than the present. And it's actually vital to our health and our well-being that we have hope. Studies, I mean, there's been proof out there when you lose hope, it's really hard to live. It's really hard to survive because if you don't have hope. The lack of hope leads to depression, it leads to suicide, it increases your physical issues like health problems, things like that, stress, heart issues. All of that stuff goes up when you don't have hope. But if you do have hope, the opposite happens. Your health gets better, your well-being gets better. Hope is very vital. Was someone going to say something?
Yeah, doesn't it like emotions that are tied in with hope and positivity, and
Yeah.
that's, I believe, like your brain actually produces serotonin, and like
Yeah, there's
the good hormones that makes your body like feel better.
there's some actual medical things going on there. And I'm actually doing a study that we're going to talk about next year on the whole science of well-being um, and how that ties in with what the Bible's been teaching us all along. I'm studying that now, and we're going to talk about that next year. Next year is like next month.
Well, it's next year, yeah.
Yes, next year. But so for the Bible Project, if you get a chance to watch that video, if you did, it is, they have a video on hope. They have a video on all four of the concepts of Advent, but they describe it as to wait for. They have multiple, of course, words that are used in the Bible for hope. One is that they use that is a good comparison is that they wait in expectation or a state of tension for something. That anticipation of something. And in the Old Testament, they had that type of hope and that waiting for the Messiah. And they were hoping in anticipation, that expectation with that great tension for deliverance and for that true shalom to come, which they believed that Messiah would bring. And they were wanting that deliverance and that true shalom in their relationship with God, and for healing for their nation, because they were sinking into self-destruction. I mean, look at the world today. We're doing that right now. Everything. I mean, there's this hope for something better in the future, but a lot of people don't know what to hope in to bring that about. And it's not really the same thing as optimism, because optimism is choosing to believe the circumstance will work out, and it's kind of based on circumstance or odds, whereas biblical hope is not based on those things at all. It's not based on emotion. It's not based on odds. It is often there's often not even a sign that things are going to get better, that you choose to hope anyway. It's hope still remains, and hope keeps you going when optimism fails. And the Old Testament example of that would be in Hosea 2:15, where Israel is being oppressed by foreign empires. They're looking back on their history to how God has surprisingly delivered them in the past. For example, when they were delivered from slavery in Egypt, suddenly they did not expect it. They did not see it coming, but He was moving all along to bring about this surprising rescue and deliverance out of slavery in Egypt. And they were looking back on that in the Hosea time frame to give them hope for deliverance in the future. And Chris lost his hope because he just quit trying to log in. But they were looking back on their history to look forward to the future, to give them hope for deliverance again. And they had been waiting on, at this point, and through up until the New Testament time frame, they'd been waiting on God for over 400 years with nothing but silence. And what got them through that 400 years was they kept looking back on His faithfulness in the past to bring them their hope for this surprising better future. In the New Testament, that surprising better future showed up with Jesus coming as Messiah. He's described in 1 Peter 1:3 as our living hope. In our present human states, we're all slaves to evil and death and self-destruction. And Jesus' surprise response through coming as the Messiah, taking on... Okay, everyone's typing in chat right now. There was a patch, so yeah, that's why I'm saying try to get out and get back in.
Yeah, I mean, I had that happen to me. I was like 2000 Q, waited down to 23. I got 2002 error, and then I went back in, and I got back into 23.
Okay, but here's the problem, is that sometimes when I get that 2002 error, it repeatedly throws up the 2002 error every time I try to even get to the character screen when I log back in, which resets the timer, which puts me back at the back of the line.
Are you on the toilet?
Yeah.
No, that's
it's like it's a voice changer kind of thing, you know?
That's his evil rage voice.
I am just trying very, very hard
not to rage.
Yes. So if you'll excuse me, I will mute now.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was... Sorry about that, Chris. Jesus is our living
It's all right. I'll just go cry in a corner.
Okay, and listen to Jesus as your living hope. He had this surprising response of taking all of this self-destruction and all of this evil and all of this death onto himself. He lived out his life in love. It's a living example of God's character to everyone. He was bringing about anticipation of the future deliverance. Even back then, they were still looking for the future deliverance. And he took on the death, took on our guilt and our slavery to death and our self-destruction on himself, paying the price for our freedom. And through his resurrection, he conquered death itself. So that empty tomb is bringing about a new hope, a new anticipation. Metaphorically, we are being reborn into a new, different human that is no longer enslaved to death or to self-destruction or condemnation or guilt. And by accepting his gift of that sacrifice, that surprising response, we are reconciling our relationship with God through shalom. Through shalom. And Romans 8:21 through 23, again, it says that the universe is groaning as we wait eagerly for shalom. So the future hope is we look at what happened with Jesus and with that reconciliation with God, and we see that what he has is planned for the entire universe, not just for us, not just for the world, but for everything, entire universe. And you're AFK again, Hayden. Keep moving your camera or something.
Well, it's 30 minutes for a kick out, so you can go AFK for a second.
But so then biblical hope is choosing. So it's a choice. It's not really an emotion even. It's a choice of waiting in anticipation that God will surprise us with a much better future than the one we have right now. That is just as or more surprising and even than what he's done before. And for example, with the entire universe and the reconciliation of true shalom for the entire universe, he could bring about something that is just as surprising or more so than having a crucified man rising from the dead. And it's not about the odds, and hope doesn't look at the odds. It looks back at the surprising deliverance through the resurrected Christ to look forward to a universe with true shalom. And so has there ever been a time when you've looked back to look forward to get you through something, if you feel like sharing?
I guess I can look back to the time when I was just on my own, and I thought you know how like you have a plan in your life that you're like at 25 I want to be married and have a kid on the way kind of thing, or this and that, and I got really depressed when those plans were coming into fruition, and I felt like I was a failure, and general depression stuff. And I can look back now and be like, nah, I was just going through the world, going through life as I could, and sure, other people might have been more quote unquote what is it successful than me, but it doesn't matter. I got a house now. I have I can do my finances properly. I don't worry about them like stressing all the time. I wouldn't say my life's perfect, but it's definitely better than it was.
Yeah.
So
For me, I mean, oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Are you gonna say something?
Mm-hmm.
I was asking for, there was a time that you have looked back to give you hope for. And now there's a train. Again.
Choo choo.
Hate the trains.
I don't know. I'm just, you know.
Well, for me, it's like going on right now. I mean, going on pretty often. It's like I had a plan, like, yeah, I was gonna be so at such a place at a certain age in my life, and none of that happened. And life got flipped upside down multiple times. I was another story for another day. I took things into my own hands because I didn't like God's time frame, and that made things worse. But I ended up in a very unhappy, unsafe situation, and then I wound up getting divorced, and then just like everything flipped upside down, and entire life failure. That's what I viewed it as. I had to restart my entire life from scratch, and then within a year of that happening, I lost my job. So it's like I was pretty on it. I was pretty like out of hope at that point. The only thing keeping me alive was the fact that I had a dog waiting for me at home. That is the only thing. And so there's been, I somehow got through that with friends, but then here again, I lost my job again, and I lost my home again. But I have to, looking back on when that divorce and that whole life disruption happened, I wouldn't be the person I am today if none of that had happened. There's been a major change in me and in my personality and in my situation and relationship with God since that happened. And now the same thing is happening. Like, I can look back at how I was 2 years ago and see I was this way. And 2 years ago, I don't even know if I'd be talking to you the way I am right now. I would not have been a pastor, that's for sure, because I was still stuck in the same mindset of women or to be silent in the church, because that's what I was taught growing up, and I was still fighting through that even back then, and I still have trouble with that now, but not as much. But so looking back on how things have changed and seeing that there is some kind of path that God's dragging me on, because I'm like kicking and screaming the whole time. He's dragging me along where he wants me to go, and I'm having to look back to see, okay, he hasn't steered me wrong yet. It was me making my own decisions that always mess things up. But if I let him do it, stop trying to do it myself, then I'll see that it's going to be better if I just let him do it. That's where I am.
I guess I kind of have one. I don't know if it fits into the exact concept, but I don't know if it's a hope thing, but kind of the same thing you said, where just kind of letting God take the wheel sometimes pans out really good. Because back in the day, way back in the day now, because I keep getting older, but I used to be into a lot of drugs and things of that sort, and one day out of nowhere, this girl calls me up and she's like, "Hey, you want to come over and get high?" And something in me was like, "Don't do that." And my friends were all like, "Well, of course we want to go get high." I'm just like, "Don't do that. Just, I don't trust it. Don't do it." Anyways, long story short, I don't go over there. And then a couple days later, I get a call from a cop telling me that apparently there was a drug dealer at her house and she had stolen drugs from him and said I did it, and that guy was sitting there waiting with a loaded crossbow. And ever since then, I've always trusted that little deep down feeling where God's like, "Don't do that.
You might not be here." Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, but looking at that gives you hope that he's doing something, and if we just trust him and listen to him, then things will turn out better than when we do things the way we want.
Oh yeah. Whenever I get that little twinge, I'm like, do the thing God says, because the other thing's not going to work out.
Yeah. That's a good one. anything to say on that one? So what kind of things have you in the past put your hope in? It's like me, I put it in jobs and money, financial stability quite a bit. I need routine, I need normalcy. And when I don't have those things, I am totally messed up.
I guess for me, I would put my hope in other people. Because I have a tendency to, I mean, I don't do it as much as I used to before, but I still kind of do struggle with it, where I value other people way more than me. So, like, I just always hope that someone will actually reach out to me, or they'll treat me the way that I was expecting them to be treating me, and that's not very unreliable. But at least, I shouldn't put myself too down on that, because that's how I'm able to cling to God, regardless of what other people say or whatever nonsense people want to, deny him about, because that's just the personality type that I have. I just rely on people, and I know I can at least rely on God without any issue, without any detriment to myself.
I don't know if you would call it hope, but I just roll through life with such a blasé attitude about everything that it's just going to work out somehow. Like the last year I spent just hemorrhaging money, and I was like, no, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I get that.
It'll pan out sooner or
apathetic?
later.
Is it I think it's just being apathetic about things.
Yeah, I think that's the word.
Yeah.
And I apply that to my entire life.
Yeah. You might want to think through that, though. Why is it that you're that way? Because I don't know, is it a trusting God thing, or is it just some other thing? And I'm not saying you have to answer that, but it might be worth thinking about. Reflecting.
A little of both.
But yeah, there's a beauty that God can kind of manipulate the negatives in your personality to be able to, like, assist you along with how you see the world.
He knows all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, because if you need a little bit of that apathy where you're like, meh. Because if you're strung up all the time and just like anxious all the time, that causes a whole slew of other problems.
It's not an entire thing of not caring. It's like once something becomes an issue, it's like, okay, deal with that. But it's never a thought of like it's not gonna get dealt with. It's always a thought of like it'll pan out in the end.
Yeah.
So you've got kind
procrastination.
of optimistic gift there.
In a way, yeah.
It's not apathy so much as optimism, maybe.
True. Yeah. I guess it depends on the situation.
Depends. Yeah. Because apathy means that you don't care. And it's like, would you even be here right now if you didn't care? If you had apathy
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
anything,
I see what you mean.
Here, be off playing the game. But yeah. So now I was going to talk about joy a bit. Does anyone have a concept? What is your concept of joy?
That's sad that nobody has anything on that.
Does that say something?
What is my life of despair?
What is joy? Usually, I guess a lot of people think about their mood. Joy is like being in a good mood or being happy. That cheerful, that's a common thought that people have about joy. There's a lot of words, again, in the Bible that are used for joy. There are many things that are mentioned as sources for joy, like the beauty of nature can bring joy. Beautiful and good things in life, good friends bring joy to your heart. Good meals, good Bible as says, good wine. These things bring joy. Celebrations can bring about joy, but human history has been marked by death and loss, and the world is full of this world that is full of beauty is corrupted by our own selfishness, our own self-centeredness. Biblical joy is a completely unique perspective on that. It's not based on an emotion, it's not based on your circumstances. Again, and it seems like the theme is in all of these is none of these things are based on circumstance or emotion. They're all a choice, it seems to me. And you have to take the focus off what's going on right here and right now, and you have to focus on this future promise that is based on that hope, that shalom that hope for shalom, that hope for true peace, that hope for there's going to be something better in the future. The Old Testament example, Psalms 105:43 talks about Israel having joy in the wilderness. They were recently brought out of that captivity and that slavery, and they were in this wilderness, and they didn't have food, they didn't have water, but they had joy, at least at first. Story
I
for
like to
another,
think that.
for another day. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I like to think that when I think about joy, it's very temporary. Where it's more of like, woohoo, something good happened.
Yeah.
And then life happens.
Yeah.
Well, at least with hope, it's more enduring. Just because the very state of it is like, you hope good things will come, so there's always a future, you know.
Yeah.
Joy, it's kind of like it's in the moment, you know.
So
You'll laugh for a moment. You'll
thinking about it more as happiness than you are about the biblical concept of joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we all do that. A lot of it's hard to wrap our minds around this biblical concept of joy. It's hard on all of them. Really, it's a hard thing, difficult. It's a choice. It's not a feeling, and you have to have that hope and that peace. You have to have that hope in that peace to be able to even have joy in circumstances like this. So otherwise, you can't. And that's another thing that Jesus brings about. He brings about great joy. In Luke 2:10, he is the promised one to bring shalom, and he arrived on the scene as the Messiah, and that brought great joy to people, that they now have this hope that they're seeing filled for this true shalom. And it's regardless of circumstances. Yeah, it's like Matthew 5:12 says, "Rejoice when you are rejected for my sake." Acts, and that was Jesus talking. Acts 13:52, it says that talked about them. The early church had joy even when they were being persecuted, because their whole perspective of the world had changed because the Messiah had come. And if you haven't watched The Chosen, that is a great thing to think about when you're thinking about these concepts of hope and peace and joy and love. Is they do a really good job of bringing that into a thing that you can wrap your mind about. Is that their entire perspective of everything changed, and things didn't matter that used to matter. Like Philippians 3:1 says, Paul chose joy even though he was in prison and even though he was about to get executed.
Oh, jeez.
What's that? Is that sirens?
Yeah, I don't know why they're going off now, but okay.
But he chose to have joy, and he was about to get killed. He was about to get executed, but he still, then again, it was a choice.
Chris needs to choose joy.
Choose joy, Chris. And hope for shalom, because Final Fantasy will have shalom in the coming weeks. Soon.
Believe in the Yoshi P that believes in me.
Shalom will happen in Final Fantasy soon. then this biblical perspective makes joy possible even in the very darkest of circumstances. It doesn't mean that you're ignoring or suppressing your sorrow. It's good and healthy to express your sorrow. It's actually essential that we do that. It's good and healthy to. Paul, he talked about 2 Corinthians. He talked about missing his loved ones, and he talked about his loss of freedom, and he shared that, and he acknowledged it, acknowledged his pain, but he chose to trust God that he would bring about shalom, and that is bringing about shalom to situations, to everything. And that's a very, very different perspective than the world has of joy and of anything. And again, it's not just an emotion, it's a decision of faith to hope in anticipation for that future shalom, where everything will be restored to its proper place. If anyone's comfortable, do you mind sharing a time when you had joy in some kind of dark place? How did you deal with that?
I don't have a story on it, but I do like pointing out the serendipity of this all being exactly the plot of Endwalker.
I know. I've been thinking
that.
of it. Like,
yeah.
I'm farther along, but it's like, I don't want to say anything about it because
it's literally the plot.
Yeah.
I was saying this, I was thinking, wait, Endwalker.
That's like some serious levels of serendipity.
Yeah. And there's also, when I was watching that scene with Fandaniel yesterday, there was that whole, spoilers for anyone watching, there was that whole scene where he was talking about despair, and it's like, well, I'm actually going to be talking about that next month. That whole science of well-being thing. It's all very...
You haven't even gotten to the whole flower thing yet. It delves exactly into what you're talking about.
There's more flower stuff because I saw the
Yeah.
flower thing. Okay.
Yes.
No, the flower's really important.
Okay.
It's the primary part.
Cool. Then I'll need
You may
to
want
hurry up
to
and
get
finish
your
that SQ.
learn on color theory too.
Color theory, yeah. I
Yeah.
did take that when I went to the Art Institute for graphic design, but it was a rather long time ago. Yeah. But is there anything else anyone wanted to share about that before we... Yeah, I'll be paying a lot of attention to Endwalker.
No, just finding joy in sad places.
Yeah.
I don't know, I've always been the weirdo that looks at goes out in nature and just like sees all the interesting things that God has put, like a little frog. I'll just pick up a frog and be happy. You know, just like I caught a little critter. Just the simple things, the simple joys where, you know, there could be like a whole monumentous amount of just nonsense that legitimately you need to focus on, but being able to find joy in stupid things, you know.
I don't know if it counts towards the same concept. That might lead more towards being heartless, but no matter like what terrible situations I'm in, I can always crack a joke about it.
That's good. I mean, it's good that you can. I don't think that's heartless.
That's just the way that God has given you armor, you know?
That's how we deal, because, I mean, when my father died, we were laughing at the funeral. That didn't mean that we were happy he died. Our lives, another example of when our lives got completely turned upside down because we were poorer than poor, dirt broke more than dirt broke. We couldn't afford dirt after that, but we're still able to laugh. And that's not heartless. We have to be able to, or we won't be able to live. That's where the despair and the suicide come from. find that joy, if you can't find that hope. That's where those things happen. So looking back, that's kind of part of it too, is looking back to see how he's brought me through in the past, to say that he will bring me through this now. It's like, right now I'm even wondering if I will be able to have my own home again. Because right now it doesn't look like it. But I have hope that God will come through and that things will get better.
Yep. Financial system will collapse. Everything will become free.
And we'll all be a part of Canada.
We'll all be in a barter trade system. Then,
Yeah. Let's do that.
okay. Part of Canada. I'm not hating Canada. I'm not. I've been to Canada. Okay. No more anti-America stuff.
I'm just being silly. I find it funny how like that's what all the liberals people that like, oh my gosh, you can't stand America. I want to go to Canada because they have this and that. It's like, you don't know. They still don't have freedom of speech.
All of their
like
nations,
they say
the
they do, but they don't.
Yeah, every single nation has a problem of some kind. So yeah, there's no perfect nation, and there will not be a perfect nation until God comes back.
Vivi, are you a Canuck?
What?
She's an American.
A Canuck? Oh, okay.
A Canuck?
Yeah.
Like so.
Oh, did you think I was Canadian? I mean,
yeah, I thought that's what you were saying.
I'm like a hop skipping away from
close.
Canada.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Very close to Canada. I'm very close to Mexico.
Michigan?
I'm.
Nope. That's next door, though.
I'm a hop, skip, and a jump
Well,
away from Mexico.
Oh, you're.
Wait, you're in South Dakota? You're in North Dakota? North Dakota?
We are
Wisconsin.
recording this, so
Wisconsin.
we don't want to give away too
Oh,
much
that's right.
information on where she lives.
I live in Northwest Florida. If y'all want to come meet me, my address is.
Don't do that. Why does your
Please.
voice sound like you've got that mod on? Do you have your voice mod on?
Do I have my voice mod on?
Sounds like it. That's why we were talking about you sounding rather angry.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I think I have my. I did have a voice mod on. Yes.
Wow.
His D&D voice mod.
What about this? Any better?
Because you sounded evil angry.
Oh, did I?
Yes, you sound like you're about to punch a hole through a wall.
You were about to come through the computer.
Oh no, my voice mod is crashing.
Oh no.
But no,
Okay.
I was quite. Yeah.
You sounded even angrier because you had the voice mod on. Okay, so now real quick, I know that we've already talked about love a whole lot, but pop quiz for those who didn't hear. What's one of the key points we talked about with love? Uh-oh.
That's like
Way.
3 sessions ago.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Oh.
Okay, so the greatest command. Remember what he said about the greatest command?
Yeah.
Love thy neighbor.
Love God, and then the next one is love thy neighbor.
Yes, love God with all your heart, soul, intelligence, and all of your strength, and love others as yourself. That goes into that whole question of who is your neighbor. So for Jesus, again, this is like all of the other themes. It's not an emotion, it's a choice. You have to choose and you have to work on it. Biblical concept of love. It's an action, it's a choice, and that's how he wants us to live. He wants us as a community and as his family that represents him to actively work towards the well-being of other people without expecting anything in return. He talks about Luke 6:35, he talks about loving our enemies, doing good to them, lend to them without expecting to be repaid. then your reward from heaven will be very great, and you will truly be acting as children of the Most High, for he is kind to those who are unthankful and wicked. And that is completely different than what we see in the world today. Our true authenticity is reflected in how we treat those that we can't stand, those that we don't agree with, those with other political or ideological views, and trolls, and Lalafels, and now bunny boys.
Oh, Lalafels aren't people.
How we treat the people behind the avatar are real people. Just like your avatar.
No, Lalafels aren't real people.
If they choose not to be a person, that rule does not apply.
I disagree. There's still a person behind that avatar.
Oh.
They gave up that humanity.
Jesus lived out his life showing love to the forgotten, to the marginalized, to the poor and the broken and the hurting, to the social outcast, and to those that hated him. We can't do it without him. In Jerusalem, the selfish, corrupt leaders tried to kill him, and he let them because he wanted to die for their sins just as much as he wanted to die for ours. Because he loved them, just like he loves us. Romans 5:8 says, "But God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die for us while we were still sinners." And now, if we've accepted that gift of him dying for us, we are called to love the same way that he has loved. And that is our purpose, why we actually exist, is to receive his love and give it back out to other people. He wants us to help create a world of others-focused, selfless love. And what we can see then with all of these concepts with the Advent is that Jesus brings these things to fulfillment here and now. In our lives right now, we can look back on God's love and his faithfulness so that we can trust in and wait in anticipation of future promise for true shalom. And having that hope for that future shalom, knowing that he loves us, helps us to have joy here and now in our current circumstances. How does that knowledge help you with your current situation?
Sorry, I accidentally left the chat.
How could you?
Oh, you accidentally hung
I
up?
thought we were a family.
So for me, that here and now, that whole concept of this whole thing of shalom and how he loves us and that he's got this future promise for us of things getting better, that helps me to trust and hope in that better future, and it helps me to see a bigger picture, that this current trouble, that any of this current annoyance with, is that the right word? With anything going on here and now, doesn't matter in the long run, and actually doesn't, I'm going to forget about half of it or most of it in a year. I'm not going to remember any of it, any of the annoying little things that happened. It's like they get me all in a bind and they get me all upset right now, but it's going to be forgotten. And it makes me think more about the bigger picture of things, the longer game, than just what's happening right now.
That's not the whole grudges. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Of course, that's more about forgiveness and love. Sorry, I'm just...
Yeah. That's all I had to do. Have any questions for me? Sure, y'all are all raring to get back to play.
Sure.
If you're able to get on. As now, it's like I don't want to log out of Coco now because I'm not going to get back in. So I guess everyone's gonna want to go back to MSQ and stuff, so there's no play session and people can't get on, having a hard time getting on anyway. We are gonna have a thing on. It's in 2 Sundays from now. We'll have some kind of Christmas thing. It's not gonna be like a party or anything. Another little discussion like this, I guess. Christmas, unless y'all want to do something. But we have the Crossworld link shell and the free company. Feel free to invite people that if you think they would enjoy being a part of this. It's not an exclusive thing. Feel free to invite people. We are thinking about having the official launch on January 15, and that would be when we have the in-game ordination for me. And yeah, all of y'all are volunteers already. So
The January 15th?
Yeah.
Okay. Making sure.
And
Dude, for Christmas, I think it'd be really fun if we did like an in-game gift exchange where we just have like a kind of just like put our names in kind of like a randomizer, and then we each just choose or get to have a random person and then figure out what that random person wants. And then just
that's gonna be hard. But yeah, some kind of gift exchange. What do y'all not have already? Because I think y'all have more than me.
I know, right? Biz Omnicrafter over here.
Yeah, she's got everything. It'll be easier for you, Vivi.
Not
well,
an
we could also
Omnicrafter anymore.
partner up with someone and help them like get stuff done, you know?
Content and stuff. You got another 2002? So we can think about it. We've got 2 weeks to think about it. But if anyone has any prayer requests, we have that prayer request channel in the Discord that y'all are welcome to use. That's our community prayer channel for everyone.
I pray that Chris will be able to get in the game.
Yes, me too.
Yeah,
I'm
pray Chris can
that,
find a way in.
and that he has hope and shalom while he waits, and patience.
Pray for my brain aneurysm.
Okay, and that he does not have too much stress, and that he realizes that in the bigger scheme of things, all of this technology.
Oh, I know. I'm just
stuff doesn't matter.
playing.
And that
I'm
he
playing.
can forgive his enemy Yoshi P.
The people that are not logging out so he can play.
He's about to be one of those people.
I am about to be one of those people.
Because we
How long is the queue?
all mess up.
How long is the queue?
I'm about to be the type of person that I despise.
So I'm gonna close this in prayer. So hold your rage.
Yeah. I'm good. I'm just messing.
Thank you, Father, for your patience and your provision with us. Thank you for meeting us where we are. Thank you for loving us. And thank you for being for us. Let us not forget that we're not alone, and that even if it may feel like it, even if we don't see how things are going to turn out, remind us that you are working. You don't see it or we don't feel it. And thank you very much. Please be with everyone this week. Go about our lives. Let them know that you're there with them, loving them. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Did you have any kind of thing today? I guess it's kind of hard since people aren't all here for giveaways or anything. Take a picture with the people that are here.
Can you Photoshop me in?
Hey, Vivi, our eyes match.
It's doing the emote.
Wait.
For y'all.
Oh. Well, you have a pink eye, don't you?
Yeah, but it looks like one of yours is kind of pink too. Not as pink as mine.
Mine's more purple. At least the way that it just looks pink because of my hair. That's what I can.
Okay.
Still
If
almost
I'm
the
getting-
same, but opposite.
Yeah.
Ion is great. Really.
Okay. And I guess stop the recording.